The sky was burning. Smoke curled like dark ribbons across the twin suns, and the ground trembled under the last echoes of war. Broken ships littered the valley, their metal shells glowing orange from the heat of plasma fire. Among the ruins lay Kylara, her armor cracked, her blood soaking into the dust. She could barely move. Every breath came sharp, dry, painful. Her once glorious energy blade was shattered beside her hand. Around her, bodies of soldiers, human and alien alike, were scattered like fallen stars. The war had ended here, but no one had won. Kylara blinked through the haze, her vision trembling. She saw movement, shadows among the smoke. Humans. Their silhouettes stood tall, scanning the wreckage, weapons ready. She felt a jolt of panic. Her instinct screamed to crawl, to hide, but her strength was gone. The air stung her lungs. She tried to lift her arm, to reach for the shard of her weapon, but her fingers refused to obey. Her mind whispered, "This is the end." For the first time in her life, she accepted it. She turned her gaze upward, to the red sky. For the honor of Elysea, she whispered, naming her home world. Her voice was weak but filled with the pride of her people. She closed her eyes slowly, expecting the cold silence of death to take her. But instead, she heard footsteps. Closer. Heavy. Human. A deep voice broke through the hum of dying engines. "She's still breathing." Kylara's heart froze. She felt a hand press against her neck, checking her pulse. Her body tensed, instinctively ready to strike, but she couldn't even lift her arm. "Don't move," the voice said, low and steady. "You're going to be okay." The words confused her. Okay? Why would a human tell her that? Why would they care? She forced her eyes open. The face above her was young, covered in soot and blood, but unmistakably human. His eyes, gray, calm, and strange, met hers. There was no hate in them, only concern. Kylara wanted to spit at him, to curse him, but her lips only trembled. The human soldier, Elias Grant, pressed something against her wound. Pain flared white-hot, and she gasped, her voice breaking into a weak growl. "Stay still," he said. "You'll make it worse." She blinked at him in disbelief. Didn't he realize who she was? Her kind had killed thousands of his. Her very name was on human wanted lists. Why would he save her? "Why?" she whispered, her voice cracking. "Why help Amy?" He didn't answer. He was focused, his gloved hands moving quickly. He tore a patch from his own uniform to wrap her side, then lifted her with surprising gentleness. The world tilted as he carried her across the broken battlefield. She could feel the beat of his heart against her arm. It was strange, warm, steady, human. In her blurred vision, she saw the horizon, a shimmer of smoke and orange light. The smell of burnt iron filled her lungs. Around them, the faint cries of other wounded soldiers echoed through the wind. She tried to fight him, to break free, but her strength was fading fast. "You'll live," he muttered, more to himself than to her. "Not on my watch, you won't die here." The words echoed in her mind as darkness began to close in again. Not on my watch. Her last memory was the sight of his insignia, the symbol of the human fleet, and the sound of his voice calling for a medical evac. Then everything went silent. When Kylara opened her eyes again, she wasn't on the battlefield. The ceiling above her was white. Too white. There was no smoke, no screams, no smell of blood. Soft lights glowed around her. Machines hummed quietly nearby. She blinked in confusion. The sheets beneath her were soft, and her armor was gone. Her skin was clean, bandaged, wrapped in human fabric. A faint scent of antiseptic filled the air, and something else. Coffee. Her hand twitched toward her side, expecting pain. It was there, but muted, controlled. She glanced down and saw small silver discs on her ribs, human healing tech. Panic surged through her. Human technology. That meant one thing, she was in enemy territory. She turned her head slowly. A shadow moved near the corner. The same man from the battlefield sat in a chair beside her bed, asleep, his head bowed. It was him, the human who carried her. Elias Grant. Her throat went dry. Every part of her screamed to run, to escape. But when she tried to move, Her body answered with fire. She winced, biting her lip. The sound woke him. His eyes opened, calm, gray, same as before. He leaned forward, voice quiet but firm. "Don't move. You're safe." "Safe?" she hissed, the word sharp with disbelief. "In enemy hands." He sighed softly, resting his elbows on his knees. "You're alive. That's all that matters right now." Kylara's eyes narrowed. "You should have let me die." Elias looked at her for a long moment. Then, quietly, he said, "I've seen enough death for one lifetime." The silence that followed was heavy. Only the faint hum of machines filled the air. Kylara's heartbeat echoed in her ears, steady, human, terrifyingly calm. She didn't know what frightened her more, that she was in a human's bed, or that, for the first time in her life, she wasn't sure who the real enemy was. Kylara's world was made of silence now. No screaming engines, no clash of metal, no command calls echoing in her ears. Only the quiet hum of the human room, soft lights, cold air, and the faint rhythm of a breathing machine. She didn't belong here. Her kind were trained from birth to fear humans, to see them as ruthless, logic-driven creatures who burned planets for power. Yet, here she was, lying in a human bed, her wounds wrapped neatly, her body kept alive by their strange machines. And sitting beside her was the very man who'd saved her, the one with those gray, unreadable eyes. He wasn't wearing armor now. Just a plain undershirt, sleeves rolled to the elbows, revealing scars that traced across his skin like lightning bolts frozen in flesh. A soldier's marks. He noticed her watching. Their eyes met for the first time in full light. "You're awake," he said simply. His voice was calm, too calm, like someone used to chaos. Kylara's first instinct was to attack, but her body betrayed her. Her muscles felt weak, her limbs heavy as stone. She reached for her side, only to find her weapon gone. "Don't bother," he said, reading her like an open book. "You were half dead when I found you. You can barely stand, let alone fight." Her golden eyes narrowed. "Then why keep me alive?" He didn't answer immediately. He just looked at her for a long moment, as if searching for the right words. "Because leaving someone to die, even an enemy, isn't something I can do anymore." His tone was quiet, but there was something in it. Regret. Loss. The kind of pain that soldiers carried when they'd seen too many faces fade away. Kylara turned her head away, pretending not to care, but her heart beat faster. She hated that his words didn't sound like weakness. They sounded like truth. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated. Her people's names were sacred, tied to their lineage and honor. "You don't need to know," she said coldly. He shrugged. "All right. Then I'll just call you Trouble." She glared at him. "I would rather die than be called that." A faint smile tugged at the corner of his lips, not mocking, not cruel. Just human. "Fair enough. I'm Elias," he said finally. "Elias Grant. Former Sergeant, Terran Ground Forces." The word former caught her attention. She tilted her head slightly. "Former?" He leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. "War changes people. Some of us stop following orders before the orders stop making sense." His voice carried a quiet exhaustion that Kylara recognized too well. It was the same emptiness that had begun to haunt her before her final mission, that silent question every warrior asks after too many battles: what's left to fight for? She studied him silently. His uniform jacket hung on a hook beside the door. The insignia was torn, as if deliberately removed. A deserter, then. A human who had walked away from his own army. "Your people will kill you for saving me," she said flatly. He gave a small nod. "Probably. And yet, you don't care?" He looked at her, eyes steady. "I care enough to save one life, even if it ruins mine." For a moment, neither spoke. The air between them was thick with something strange, not trust, not yet, but something that could become it if the universe allowed. Then a faint beeping sound filled the room. Kylara flinched. Elias rose and walked toward the small counter, pouring liquid from a steel container into a mug. Steam rose from it, dark, rich, bitter. He handed it to her. "Drink." She stared at it like it was poison, What is it? Coffee, he said with a faint smirk. Human fuel. I don't drink human fuel. You'll like it. Maybe. Her stomach growled, loud enough for both of them to hear. His smirk deepened, and for the first time since the battlefield, she felt heat rush to her cheeks. Reluctantly, she took the cup, bringing it close to her nose. The smell was strange, sharp, earthy, almost like burned soil after rain. She sipped. It was bitter, and it burned her tongue slightly. But it was comforting. Elias chuckled softly. See? Not so bad. Kylara frowned, pretending she hated it. But she didn't. Not really. For the next few minutes, neither spoke. Only the sound of her quiet sipping and the distant hum of the ship's systems filled the air. Then, suddenly, a metallic alarm echoed from the far wall. Elias moved quickly, typing something on a holographic screen. The display flickered with red warnings. Patrol drones, approaching Quadrant 4. Kylara's heart skipped. Your people are coming. Elias didn't answer immediately. His jaw tightened. Yeah. They sweep the area every few hours. Looking for survivors. Or fugitives. Her hand trembled slightly. They'll kill me on sight. I know, he said. That's why you're not going to be here when they come. He walked toward the side panel and pressed a button. A hidden door opened silently in the wall, a small compartment lined with emergency supplies. You'll hide in there until they pass. She hesitated. Why do this for me, human? Why risk everything? He turned to her, his gray eyes steady, his voice almost a whisper. Because maybe saving you is the only good thing I've done in this war. Kylara's breath caught. She didn't understand this man, his logic, his calm, his refusal to hate. But something inside her, something she had buried under armor and pride, began to stir. As she crawled into the hidden compartment, she looked at him one last time. Elias Grant, she murmured. You are either a fool, or the bravest man I've ever met. The door closed softly, plunging her into darkness. Outside, footsteps echoed through the hall. Human soldiers entered, their voices sharp, mechanical, cruel. Kylara pressed her hand over her mouth, heart pounding, listening as the man who saved her faced his own kind, alone. The sound of boots faded. For a long moment, Kylara stayed hidden in the narrow compartment, barely breathing. The hum of the patrol ship's engines rattled faintly through the walls. She could hear voices outside, harsh, clipped, unmistakably human. Search every room, one soldier barked. Command says there's movement in this sector. Her pulse quickened. She pressed her ear to the metal panel, hearing the thud of footsteps, the hiss of scanners, the clang of armor. A beam of light swept past the door's gap. Her breath caught. Then, silence. The door slid open, and Elias stood there, face tense but calm. They are gone, he whispered. You can come out. Kylara stepped out slowly, every motion cautious. The air felt heavy, charged with the scent of human sweat and machine oil. She looked around the small shelter, a dim room cluttered with tools, food packets, and a half-broken plasma rifle on the table. It wasn't a soldier's barracks. It was a hideout. You disobeyed your command, she said softly, scanning the marks on his uniform. You're living like a fugitive. Elias wiped the sweat from his forehead. You're not wrong. Why? He hesitated, then leaned against the wall, eyes distant. I followed orders once. Burned a colony that didn't deserve it. My team called it a strategic purge. He looked at her, eyes filled with something heavy, human, raw. I started seeing ghosts after that. Couldn't take another order. Kylara felt a strange pull in her chest. His pain felt familiar. My people told us humans had no mercy, she said quietly. That you were machines wearing skin. Elias gave a bitter laugh. Maybe that's true for some of us. But I'm done being one of them. He moved toward a small crate, pulling out a sealed meal pack. You need to eat, he said. That body of yours won't heal without energy. I don't take food from enemies, she muttered. Then starve, he replied calmly, setting the pack beside her and walking away. For a few minutes, she stared at it, torn between pride and survival. The scent of warm rations filled the room. Her stomach growled again, betraying her. Finally, she tore open the packet and took a bite. It tasted strange, salty, metallic, but it filled the emptiness inside. Elias didn't look back, but she knew he was listening. "I killed humans," she said quietly, swallowing hard. "Dozens. Maybe more." "I know," he said. His tone didn't change. "And I killed your people too." Their eyes met, warrior to warrior, sinner to sinner. There was no forgiveness between them, only understanding. "Then why save me?" she asked. "You could have left me there." He turned his gaze to the floor. "Because I'm tired of burying what's left of my soul." Kylara blinked, unsure how to respond. The humans she'd fought were soldiers of greed and control, not this. Not a man haunted by mercy. She looked around the room again. The tools, the broken equipment, the quiet hum of the generator, all signs of a man surviving alone, hunted by both sides. "Your people will kill you for harboring me," she said. He gave a small shrug. "Maybe. But if I send you out there, the scanners will pick you up within minutes. You'll die before sunset." Her eyes softened. "So you choose death for yourself instead of for me?" He looked up, meeting her gaze. "I'm not choosing death. I'm choosing to do one right thing before it finds me." There was a long silence between them. Then, without warning, the ship sensors beeped again, sharper this time. Elias moved quickly to the console. The red hologram flickered to life. "Patrol drones, reapproach detected. ETA, 3 minutes. Kylara's body tensed. "They're scanning again." "Yeah." His tone turned grim. "They're doubling back." She stepped closer, her instincts returning. "You should let me go. If they find me here, you'll die too." Elias looked at her, truly looked, and shook his head. "No. You're still healing. You wouldn't last an hour outside." "Then you'll die for nothing," she said sharply. "Maybe," he said quietly, "but at least I'll die knowing I didn't become what they made me." Something inside her broke a little at those words. She didn't understand him, this man who treated compassion like rebellion. The alarm grew louder. Lights flashed red. Kylara grabbed the plasma rifle on the table and checked its charge. The power cell blinked weakly. "If they come, we fight together," she said. Elias smirked faintly. "Thought you didn't take help from enemies." "I said I don't take food," she replied. "Fighting's different." They both shared a fleeting smile, brief, human, strange. The sound of engines roared overhead. Dust fell from the ceiling. Kylara crouched beside the door, rifle steady despite her injuries. Elias took a position near the window, eyes narrowed, calm but ready. Then, silence again. The drones passed. No landing. No footsteps. Just the hum fading into distance. Kylara lowered her weapon slowly, her hands trembling. Elias exhaled. "Looks like we're safe, for now." She turned to him, breathing hard. "You risk your life again, for me. Why?" He leaned against the wall, exhausted, his voice barely above a whisper. "Because every time I save someone, it feels like I save a piece of myself." Her throat tightened. She didn't thank him. She couldn't. But as she looked at the human before her, this strange, weary soul who refused to hate her, she felt something she hadn't in years. Not fear. Not anger. Hope. And in the quiet that followed, as the alarms went silent and the suns dipped below the horizon, Kylara realized something terrifying, that her survival had come at a price she hadn't expected. The price of beginning to care for the very thing she was raised to destroy. The storm came at night. Wind howled through the cracks of the abandoned shelter, shaking its metal walls. Rain, thick, metallic drops, pounded the roof like gunfire. Kylara sat near the dim heater, her back against the wall, watching the human sleep. Elias had dozed off in his chair again, his head tilted slightly, a blanket half-slipped from his shoulder. The soft glow from the control panels cast a pale light on his face. Even in sleep, he looked tired, not the kind of tired that comes from battle, but from carrying too much pain for too long. Kylara's golden eyes followed the scars on his arm. Jagged lines, some old, some fresh. A soldier's story carved into skin. Her people marked victory with tattoos, humans marked survival with wounds. She wondered, quietly, which told the true story. A sharp ache pulsed in her ribs. She touched the healing discs and winced. The wounds still burned under the bandages, but it wasn't the pain that kept her awake, it was the silence. The kind that comes when war stops but the noise never leaves your head. Her mind drifted back to the battlefield, the screams, the smell of burning air, the sound of her own voice commanding others to fight. And then the moment she fell, and woke up in this world of strange mercy. "You should rest," Elias murmured suddenly, eyes half open. Kylara stiffened. "You weren't asleep?" "Not really," he said. "Soldiers don't sleep easy." She glanced at him warily. "You talk even in rest. You said a name." He blinked. "A name?" "Yes," she said softly. "Lyra." "You said, Lyra, get down." The air between them thickened. He rubbed his face with both hands, exhaling slowly. "She was my sister. She died when our dropship went down on Demos 3. I was supposed to protect her." Kylara looked away. "So that is your guilt?" "Part of it," he said quietly. "We thought we were saving colonies from alien threats. Turns out we were just taking land. Lyra figured it out before I did. She tried to report it, they silenced her. Made it look like an accident. That's when I stopped taking orders." She stared at him, seeing the faint tremor in his hand as he spoke. There was no act, no deception. Just the raw truth of a man trying to live with his ghosts. "I used to think humans were heartless," she said, her tone lower now. "But you bleed the same way we do." Elias looked up at her, his gray eyes meeting her golden ones. "Maybe that's the problem," he said softly. "We're too much alike." The rain outside intensified. The heater flickered. Kylara's breathing slowed, her body finally relaxing after days of tension. Then, the nightmare came. She was back on Elisera, her home world, but the sky was burning blue this time. The human fleet descended like falling stars. Her people screamed as fire rained from orbit. Kylara ran through the smoke, searching for her commander, her friends, and found only ash. A voice echoed through the dream, "You should have fought harder." She turned, saw Elias's face in the flames, his eyes empty, accusing. She woke screaming. Elias was already beside her, his hands gently gripping her shoulders. Hey, you're safe. You're okay." Her chest heaved. Sweat glistened on her brow. She blinked rapidly, disoriented. "It felt real," she whispered. "I know," he said. "Dreams like that don't fade. I still see mine." She stared at him, the human who once would have been her nightmare, and now, somehow, was her anchor. "I saw you," she said. "In the fire." He smiled faintly, though it didn't reach his eyes. "I've been in worse places." Her lips curved into something close to a smile. "Your humor is strange. It keeps me from falling apart." Kylara leaned back, breathing slower now. The heater hummed softly between them. For the first time, the silence wasn't cold. It was calm. "Elias," she said after a while, "you said your sister tried to stop the war. Did she believe peace was possible?" "She believed in people," he replied. "Even the ones who didn't deserve it." Kylara looked down at her hands. "Then maybe she was right." He tilted his head. "You think peace is possible between us?" She met his eyes. "I think if we keep saving each other, maybe one day it will be." The heater flickered again. Elias stood, walked to the generator, and gave it a firm hit. It hummed back to life. "That's my kind of diplomacy," he said with a faint grin. Kylara shook her head, amused despite herself. "You're impossible." "Maybe. But I'm still alive." She studied him again, really looked. Beneath the soldier's weariness was something she hadn't expected to find in a human, quiet kindness, the kind that doesn't need words. Her eyes softened. "You remind me of someone," she said quietly. "Who?" "My brother," she said. "He died protecting civilians during the first strike. He said the same thing you did, that saving others keeps you human." Elias's expression changed, a flicker of sadness, then warmth. He sounds like a good man. He was, she whispered. And you would have liked him. For a long time, they just sat in silence, two warriors from opposite worlds sharing one small flicker of peace. Outside, the storm raged on, lightning flashing against the windows like ghosts of the past. But inside, for the first time, Kylara didn't feel alone. The blood of her people ran through her veins, and yet something else was beginning to flow there too, something dangerous, something human. And as Elias drifted back to sleep, Kylara looked at him and realized with quiet terror that this bond between them was no longer just survival. It was connection. It was warmth. And it was going to change everything. The dawn came quietly, too quietly. Thin light filtered through the cracks of the shelter as Kylara stirred awake. The air smelled faintly of metal and wet soil. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the silence that followed carried a weight she couldn't name. Elias was already up, sitting at the old comms console, tapping through glowing screens. His jaw was tight, eyes sharp. The usual calm in his voice was gone. Kylara sat up slowly. Something's wrong. He didn't answer at first. The blue light from the monitor reflected on his face, painting him ghostly pale. Finally, he exhaled. One of the old distress beacons just came online. She frowned. Whose beacon? Mine, he said quietly. It activated itself. Kylara's chest tightened. You mean, someone knows you're alive? Elias nodded. And they'll track the signal straight here. A low hum filled the air, the kind that made the ground vibrate before you even saw what caused it. Distant engines. Orbiting drones. Scanners locking on. They're coming, Kylara said, her voice cold but steady. Elias stood, grabbing his rifle. They'll sweep the area within minutes. If they find you, they'll kill you. If they find me harboring you, they'll do worse. Kylara's mind raced. Then we leave. He hesitated. You're still not fully healed. She gave him a fierce look. Better to run on broken legs than die in a cage. He couldn't argue with that. He grabbed a small pack, stuffing in rations, ammo, and the few medical discs they had left. Kylara followed him to the hidden exit, a narrow tunnel dug into the rock beneath the structure. The hum grew louder. Through the cracks above, faint red lights cut across the sky, human patrol craft scanning the valley. Go, Elias whispered. She moved first, crouched low, her alien eyes adjusting easily to the dim path. Elias followed, sealing the hatch behind them. The tunnel was damp, lined with old wires and rusted panels. Every sound they made echoed like thunder. They moved fast, silent. The deeper they went, the more Kylara's breathing steadied, battle instinct taking over. Then a flash of light blinked from her wrist communicator, a signal from her people's network. She froze. What is it? Elias whispered. It's a code, she said, eyes narrowing. From the Alizarin fleet. They are nearby. Elias blinked. Your people are here. Yes. Searching for survivors or prisoners. He stopped walking. If they find us, they'll kill me. Kylara hesitated. She knew he was right. Her people's orders were clear. Any human found beyond the ceasefire line is to be executed. But Elias had saved her, twice. She pressed the communicator against the wall and shut it off. The faint blinking stopped. Elias frowned. You just silenced your own rescue beacon. She met his gaze. Because I won't trade your life for mine. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, quietly, you're starting to sound human. Her lips curved faintly. Don't insult me. They both almost smiled, until the tunnel shook. A blast echoed from above. Dust fell like rain. The scanners had found the entrance. Voices shouted in the distance, human soldiers, armed and fast. Elias grabbed her hand. Run! They sprinted through the narrow passage. The tunnel opened into a rocky ravine lit by the pale twin suns. A broken landscape stretched ahead, jagged cliffs, red dust, twisted metal. Kylara stopped suddenly, pulling Elias behind cover. They'll be right behind us. He crouched beside her, checking his rifle. There's a ridge ahead. If we reach it, we can lose them in the fog. She nodded. Then we fight our way there. A shadow moved above. Drones hovered, scanning the terrain. Kylara drew her blade, the short human alloy one he'd reforged for her. The hum of its energy core lit her face in a blue glow. Elias glanced at her. "You sure you can fight?" She met his eyes, calm, defiant. "You saved me. Now I repay the debt." The first drone fired. Plasma burst against the rocks. They ducked, returning fire. Elias hit one, sparks exploded midair. Kylara leapt from cover, her blade slicing through another as it dove low. The explosion threw her backward, but Elias caught her before she hit the ground. "You're insane," he muttered. "I learned from you," she said breathlessly. They ran again, smoke rising behind them. The ridge loomed ahead, steep, jagged, their only chance. Then the sound hit, a deep roar that wasn't from the sky. Kylara froze. "Ground troops." A squad of human soldiers emerged from the fog, rifles raised. Their leader stepped forward, helmet reflecting the sun's light. His voice boomed through the comms. "Sergeant Elias Grant, you are under arrest for treason and aiding an enemy combatant." Kylara tensed, blade ready. "Don't," Elias whispered. "If you fight, they'll kill us both." She glanced at him. His eyes were calm again, too calm. He raised his rifle slowly, then dropped it to the ground. "I'll buy you time," he said softly. Her eyes widened. "No. Go, Kylara. There's a secondary tunnel near the ridge. It'll lead you out." "Elias." He looked at her with that same quiet steadiness that had haunted her since the day he saved her. "You owe me nothing. But if I die for something good, let it be this." The soldiers closed in. She wanted to fight, to drag him with her, but her body moved against her heart's command. She backed away, vanishing into the dust as he lifted his hands in surrender. The last thing she saw before disappearing into the mist was Elias, standing tall, unarmed, surrounded by his own kind. And for the first time in her life, Kylara felt the pain of leaving someone behind. Kylara ran until her lungs burned. The tunnel twisted through layers of red stone, narrow and suffocating. Her hands scraped against rough walls, her wounds reopening as she stumbled through the darkness. Every step echoed with the sound of her heartbeat, and his voice. "Go, Kylara." She couldn't forget the way Elias had said it, not with fear, not even with pain, but with quiet acceptance. The same tone a soldier used when death was already standing beside him. Outside, the twin suns bled light into the canyon. The horizon burned orange, and the wind howled across the empty plains. Kylara collapsed against a boulder, gasping, her body shaking. She wanted to believe he was still alive, but part of her already knew what human soldiers did to traitors. She looked down at her hands, his blood was still on her armor from when he caught her during the fight. The blood of a human. The blood of her savior. The blood of someone she was supposed to hate. Her communicator blinked faintly, her people's signal, faint but steady. They were close now. If she followed it, she could reach the Alizarin dropships within the hour. Safe. Alive. And alone. Kylara stared at the flickering light, her pulse thundering. Her training told her what to do: return to command, report the human, bury the weakness. But the warrior inside her whispered something else. "He saved you. Twice. He faced his own kind for you." She slammed her fist into the rock, cursing in her native tongue. "Foolish human," she hissed. "Why didn't you run?" Her voice echoed into the vast canyon, and something in her chest broke. The echo sounded like an answer she didn't want to hear. Kylara stood slowly. The choice burned in her mind like fire: run to safety, or turn back into hell. She closed her eyes. She saw his face, the gentle eyes that didn't match the stories she'd been told of humans. Eyes that had looked at her not as an enemy, but as a person. When she opened her eyes again, the communicator's light blinked once more, and she crushed it under her heel. "I'm coming back for you, Elias." The human base rose from the dust like a black scar, metal towers, floodlights, and drone patrols cutting through the smoke. Kylara crouched at the edge of a cliff, cloaked in shadow, watching soldiers move below. Her body trembled with exhaustion, but her mind was sharper than ever. Every movement, every breath was part of her plan now. She was no longer just a soldier, she was a ghost returning for the man who refused to let her die. 2 guards passed beneath her position. She moved like lightning, dropping silently behind them. A swift strike, 1 blade to the neck, 1 to the throat. The bodies fell soundlessly. She dragged them aside, stealing 1 uniform and helmet. The human armor was heavier than her own, clunky and cold, but it would get her inside. She stepped through the gate, blending into the line of soldiers. No one looked twice. They were too busy preparing for the interrogation of the captured traitor. Elias Grant. Inside the main compound, the air was thick with the hum of machines and the stench of burned oil. A screen flickered on the wall, security footage. Kylara's breath caught when she saw him. Elias was restrained in a chair, bruised, blood dried at the corner of his lip. A human officer stood before him, speaking coldly. "You know the penalty for treason. Give us the coordinates of the alien survivor, and your death will be clean." Elias laughed weakly. "Clean? You don't do clean anymore, Commander." The officer struck him hard across the face. "Where is she?" Kylara's hands curled into fists. She had seen human cruelty before, on battlefields, through scopes, but never like this. Not to their own. She moved quickly, sliding into a maintenance corridor. The alarms above flickered faintly. She was close to the power hub. She tore off her helmet, rewired a control panel, and plunged the compound into darkness. Screams and shouts echoed. Soldiers stumbled, lights flickering red. Kylara moved through the chaos, silent as smoke. She reached the detention wing, overriding the lock. The door slid open with a hiss. Elias lifted his head, blinking through the dim red glow. For a moment, he didn't believe it was real. "Kylara?" She stepped forward, removing the human helmet. "You look terrible." He smiled weakly, blood on his teeth. "You came back." "I got bored," she said, forcing a small grin. "Besides, you still owe me for saving you in that tunnel." She knelt beside him, cutting the restraints. His wrists were raw, his body trembling, but his eyes still held that same calm strength. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "They'll kill you." She helped him stand. "Then we die together." He chuckled softly, despite the pain. "You sound like a human again." "Shut up," she said, dragging him toward the exit. They moved fast through the dark corridors, slipping between panicked soldiers. Outside, the storm had returned, rain and wind roaring as if the sky itself was helping them escape. A drone spotlight swept across the courtyard. Kylara fired, the bolt hitting its core. The explosion lit the rain like fire. They reached the ridge, their old hiding place. Elias collapsed against a rock, breathing hard. She turned, raising her blade toward the incoming lights. "Go," he said weakly. "I'll cover you." She shook her head. "You saved me. Twice. This time, I save you." The ground quaked with the sound of pursuit. But Kylara stood her ground, a wounded alien warrior beside a broken human soldier, both facing the storm as equals. And for the first time, she realized her people were wrong about humans. They weren't monsters. They were mirrors. The storm had passed by dawn. The world was quiet again, not the silence of death, but the stillness that comes after something impossible has survived. Smoke drifted lazily across the ravine where the human base had stood. The ground was littered with twisted metal and fragments of armor, but there was life among the ruins. Kylara knelt beside the injured man, her hands trembling as she adjusted the makeshift bandage on his shoulder. Elias's face was pale, his breaths shallow but steady. The light of the twin suns brushed against his skin, turning the blood on his cheek into a shimmer of gold. "You should have left me," he whispered, his voice barely a breath. She looked down at him, eyes fierce even through exhaustion. "And let your people kill you? Not after what you did for me." He tried to smile, but it came out weak. "You've gone soft, warrior." She smirked faintly. "No. I've gone human." Elias chuckled once before coughing from the effort. She steadied him, pressing a hand to his chest. His heartbeat was faint but stubborn, just like him. The distant sound of engines rolled through the valley. Kylara's head snapped up. She recognized that rhythm, Elysian dropships. Her people had found them. She rose to her feet, her body stiff, her blade still in her grip. The instinct to protect flared in her veins. "They're here," she said quietly. Elias's eyes fluttered open. "Your people?" "Yes." She looked toward the sky where silver shapes were descending through the clouds. "They'll take me, but they'll kill you if they find you alive." "Then go," he said softly. "You deserve to live." Her jaw clenched. The words hurt more than the wounds. "I don't want to live if it means leaving you again." He looked at her, really looked, the warrior who once tried to kill him, now kneeling beside him like a guardian. "Kylara, you've already given me more than life." She shook her head. "Stop talking nonsense." "I mean it," he whispered. "When I saw you out there, broken, bleeding, but still fighting, you reminded me of who I used to be. You made me remember why I wanted to protect instead of destroy." Her eyes softened. "And you made me remember why mercy isn't weakness." The ships landed nearby, engines hissing as Elysian soldiers stepped out, tall, armored, with their weapons drawn. The commander, cloaked in violet, saw her immediately and shouted, "Kylara of the 8th Legion. Step away from the human." Kylara didn't move. "He's with me," she said. The commander's voice turned cold. "That creature is an enemy of our kind." She stood slowly, placing herself between Elias and the soldiers. "So was I, until he saved my life." A murmur ran through the troops. The commander raised his plasma lance. "Move aside, warrior. You dishonor your blood." Kylara's voice was calm, but her eyes blazed with defiance. "Then let my blood bear the dishonor proudly." For a tense moment, no one moved. The soldiers hesitated, unsure whether to obey or to question what they were seeing. The legendary Kylara, defender of Elysia, now shielding a human traitor with her own body. Then Elias spoke weakly, "Kylara, don't." She looked back at him, her golden eyes softening. "You humans have a saying, don't you? Live free or die trying." He smiled faintly. "You remember that?" "I remember everything." The commander's weapon hummed louder. Kylara tightened her grip on her blade, but before either could strike, another voice echoed through the comms, the Elysian fleet's high command. "Stand down," the voice ordered. "The war is over." Every soldier froze. Kylara's breath caught. "Over?" "Yes," the voice continued. "Both sides have signed the Concord of Lyra. A ceasefire has been declared. Do not engage." The commander hesitated, then slowly lowered his weapon. One by one, the others followed. Kylara felt her knees weaken with relief. She turned back to Elias, but he was slipping into unconsciousness. "Stay with me," she whispered, cradling his head. "Don't you dare leave now." He managed a faint smile. "Guess I can rest now, eh?" Her voice broke. "No, not yet." The soldiers approached carefully. One of them, a medic, knelt beside her. "He's dying," the medic said quietly. "But if we move quickly, we might save him." Kylara looked at the Elysian insignia on the medic's arm, her people's symbol, once the mark of her duty. For the first time, she saw it not as a weapon, but as a chance. She nodded. "Then help him." The medic hesitated. "He's human." Kylara's voice turned sharp. "He's alive. Do it." There was something in her tone, the authority of a warrior who had earned her scars, that made the medic obey. They lifted Elias onto a stretcher and carried him toward the ship. Kylara followed, silent, her eyes never leaving his face. Hours later, Elias woke again, not to the sound of gunfire, but to the gentle hum of medical machines. He blinked slowly, the air cool and clean. The bed beneath him was soft, the walls curved in pale silver light. Elysian design. Alien healing bay. He turned his head, and saw her sitting beside him. Kylara. Armor gone, her hair loose, her eyes brighter than he'd ever seen them. She smiled faintly. "Now you're the one in a warrior's bed." Elias chuckled weakly. "Figures you'd return the favor." She leaned closer, her voice soft but steady. "You saved me from death. I saved you from the war. He looked at her, really looked, and for a brief, quiet moment, neither of them was soldier or alien. They were simply two lives that refused to end in hate. Outside the window, the stars moved slowly, silent witnesses to a new beginning. Kylara reached out, resting her hand over his. You closed my eyes once, thinking I was gone, she whispered. Now I close them to dream, not of war, but of peace. Elias smiled, his voice barely above a breath. Then dream for both of us. The light of dawn touched them both, human and alien, bound not by blood or species, but by something far greater. By choice. By mercy. By redemption.